Mr. Chair, we're now live streaming. Thank you.
Since we're all here, let's call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock on November 30th. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, and honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Before I look for approval of the agenda, I think council will give me the latitude to congratulate our public works team on their efforts during the storm. It seems like the city weathered quite significant storm events very well, is what I'm hearing. And attaboys and attagirls all around, well done. As we get into it, perhaps we might hear if there's things that should be done differently in the future, or lessons learned that might play into tonight's discussion. But personally, I myself, you see what went on in the rest of our local world, where we seem to have come off very well. And I know I've had compliments as I walk the neighborhood from people on the work that the public works have done. So thank you from all of us. Well done. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Gordy. I don't know why I instinctively look left. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next, public participation. Anything, Amanda? No. Unfinished business, I believe we have none. And next, number 5, new business service review. Mr. Earl, do you want to lead us off?
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. As committee is aware, we'll be continuing our service review process this evening, considering 5 service areas: public works, roads, parks, trails and recreation, boulevards, and storm sewers. And we have 1 additional service review meeting scheduled for this coming Tuesday. Public works. So we'll start with council expectations that city programs such as branch drop-off be relevant to public demand. Currently, branch drop-off is offered weekly, March through November, with twice per month service scheduled December through February. Staff ensure that Colwood residents are using staff ensure that only Colwood residents are using the branch drop-off program. And specific to our COVID response, as council is aware, we accelerated delivery of that service. That customer service, education, and consistent messaging to residents continue to drive response to service requests. Calls for service are prioritized and scheduled, prioritized over scheduled work when the issue represents a potential safety hazard. And that public works continue to develop interdepartmental partnerships to improve staff coordination of services and improve knowledge of Colwood infrastructure. Does committee have any recommended changes for council expectations?
Councillor Dane.
I'm not, there I go, I'm on, great. I just noticed that public works, roads, parks and boulevards, all, I believe we are sharing all the same staff over all of those areas, but each section lists that we have 33 full-time equivalents for each of those areas. And I think those are shared. And I just think that's an easy miscommunication to the public. So I don't have a proposal for how to fix that, but I know that the information is just being repeated so that everything's appearing the same way. But that is perhaps just a little misleading for those that don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Day. So as a committee is aware, administration is working in our public works service area to divide the allocation of resources, or sorry, to divide the manner in which we record the allocation of resources across these various service areas. And we are just, we continue to optimize our systems so that we can do that effectively, and they are not yet optimized. And so absent that, we felt it best to show the entire public works complement. And top of page 2 of 7 in brackets after staff position, history and forecast, we've articulated on the top of each time that this chart is repeated for all public works service areas in an attempt to communicate to the reader that this is not just the public works area, but this is all public works service areas. So we are hopeful that in future service reviews, this chart would be specific only to those services directly delivered by this functional area. Again, we are working to optimize our recording and accounting systems such that we can represent that accurately.
Perfect. I think that's well underway. And I just wanted to say, in looking at the numbers, there's, a whole lot of work to do in this city, and that 33 people or full-time equivalents manage that work is amazing. So thank you.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So my question pertains to, and I know anecdotally that I believe Public Works is doing a pretty damn good job. And, you just get the feeling, you'll go around, you look at the city, how our parks are maintained, everything's being maintained very, very well. So this isn't a criticism. So, but I have to state this right now. The problem that I have with, and it's an expectation that I had when we first, and you were not CAO at the time, but when we first sat down, we were told that we would have measurements that were more apropos, that would align better with, with increased manpower. So we've had, over the last 2 years, we've had a 26% increase in manpower, or is that the proper word, in personnel. We've had a 26% increase in personnel, but yet the metrics that we have don't reflect that, if you know what I mean, because everything is sort of flat as far as the milestones or the measurements, key indicators that are indicated here. So I think we have to get a grip on that. I don't know what the answer is. Is it the number of complaints have gone down or whatever, but we don't have that. So in future, we should be able to tie this in as we grow so that the metrics are aligned, so that as we grow, it's easy for us to sit here and say they should have more people. But the way it is right now, the way it shows, and if you look at right across the board, you look at the metrics that they put, it's basically flatlined. Yet we've had a 26% increase in personnel, and rightfully so. I'm not going to argue that, but it's just that the measurements are not there yet. It's not showing that. Like, it's if I was Joe Public looking at this, I'm saying, well, we've increased public works the size for parks and roads and everything, and yet we don't see the measurements that match that. So it's just a comment that I have. I think that this needs to be worked on. And would I have to have a motion on that, or
If you like.
so I would like to propose a motion that we relook at these measurements, the metrics that we have right now, and if they can be tied in better so that, we can sort of see, so we get the tangible results for the more money that we're putting into it. It's really wordy, but
Yep, so something under council expectations
Yeah.
for improved metrics.
yes, to improve metrics is basically what the expectation is. We need to improve the metrics.
Okay.
Because it should be easy to defend. And I'm just trying to help here. I'm not trying to be a hindrance here, but so I think that's what's required right now. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Michael on the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on, let me play here. Just a
Okay.
minute. You're good now.
Right. Doug made me think and look at these performance monitoring and key statistics. And they certainly don't represent the entire work of the department. Dominated by branch drop-off and Colwood cleanup. There's a lot of work that maybe actually is in some of the other items now that I look at it, but I guess that's the problem with having it split up like this. Yeah, so the numbers, the increase in numbers of full-time equivalents is not reflected in the performance monitoring key statistics here, but maybe in the other sections it will be. I'm gonna have to vote against this motion until we've had a talk all the way through the other items as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion, Mayor Mark? Hang on.
Thank you. I think this council has been clear in the past in regards to being aspirational around those metrics that Councillor Kobayashi has discussed. And I know I have been very aspirational around being able to actually understand how much a pothole to fix costs. What have staff done to this point around metrics? I'm sure you guys have been working on it because it has been discussed. So I would be interested in hearing from staff before I look at voting one way or the other.
Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Chair Parkins. So administration heard and is actively working to improve the capacity of our systems to be able to articulate at the level that would allow us to report based on different numerators in a way that was defensible. And at this juncture, we don't have confidence in the systems yet, in the precision and the granularity that would be needed to come to this chambers and provide an apples to apples comparison of a performance metric either to ourselves over time or to other municipalities. The administration of Colwood is very desirous to be able to communicate to our community the cost efficiency of our services and the effectiveness of our services. But to do that, we need systems that allow us to place costs into our accounting system in a way that when we want to generate a report on what it costs per linear meter of storm sewer pipe for the annual maintenance, or how many breaks per linear meter of that pipe are we experiencing, and or how many hours on a lift station pump are we getting prior to that pump needing maintenance, and or so we understand the need. We are actively working on it, and I'd love to be able to tell you that we're close. We're not. My expectation is it will take us likely a couple of more service review cycles to begin to get the metrics to a point where we could confidently provide what you're after. We attempted, as you discovered last night, to begin that process by showing this year, for example, in this area, taxation per resident. We heard last night that by dwelling count was also important. So we will amend this document to include dwelling counts. There are some services, and I'll use policing as an example, where we can confidently compare between communities. And so we can gather the information on policing costs between us and other communities where RCMP are used, because it's the same methodology that was used to generate that math. And we can confidently talk about how we compare to ourselves and how we compare to the others. We don't yet have the capacity internally to do that with confidence. And we want to carefully build the systems, so that's done in an automated way. And so if an operator takes out a vehicle, it automatically attributes the depreciation for that hour of that vehicle to that service, whether that was a boulevard service, a park service, a road service, a sewer service, as well as a portion of the maintenance of that cost, as well as the fuel that was used during that period, and arguably the operator's time. Those systems aren't yet in place. We're actively working on it, and we every year will make the service review process more granular with more benchmarks and metrics, so that you can compare our service to ourselves over time and to others.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate all that. Mr. Earl, a couple things come to mind. We have been waiting on this. This is third year, and we had a starting of it in our first year, which we pushed back on because we felt there were some issues. So it seems to be kind of the never ending story, but I mean, are we awaiting some kind of piece of software to be invented or what? Like, I worked at a job out of high school and we kept a trip sheet, vehicle, hours spent, dug this ditch. It went into a tray, it got put into a Quattro Pro spreadsheet. And at the end of the cycle, we knew how many hours were spent here, there, and everywhere. Like, I mean, some of the stuff that you're talking about, I don't care how much gas it uses or the wear and tear on the vehicle. I really don't. I want accounting of the labor, and we'll assume that the loader is going to depreciate over time. But so I don't know. How about this? If we're waiting for the Cadillac, I'm good with a Volkswagen, you know, for in the interim. I don't know.
So I can assure you that the labor numbers are generally reflective, and you can use those. And if you look deeper into the document this evening, you'll see some park statistics that work in that regard. Administration is attempting to build a system-wide process.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with system-wide processes. I've been part of one before and successfully compared to 13 other municipalities. And so I know that Colwood can get there. I am just aware of the current limitations of our system. We could take the time to do that math, but we wouldn't have the same confidence that we would if there were automated systems generating that data for us.
Yeah, I got you. I am familiar with an automated system away from here that I have some familiarity with, and it coughs up sheets and it makes no sense and it's unreliable anyways, and that's some expensive suite of software. The only other thing I was going to ask, if my friend Councillor Kobayashi would consider pulling back his motion until we get a little deeper into this, because I like some of what I see in some of the other areas. So I'm not sure that a global motion such as that I could support that at this point in time, but maybe at the conclusion or closer to the end. Councillor Kobayashi, I'll leave that thought with you.
Councillor Kobayashi.
I'm okay with that, actually. It's just that I just want to bring attention to it once again. And the only other part of this was I was hoping that we could just do a quick scan of the other 13 municipalities to see if someone's already got something in place, that so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's my only point, I guess. So, but I'm willing to do that.
The rest of council okay with withdrawing that motion for now? Okay, thank you. My only comments were, let's let the public works do public works and let's not have them be bookkeepers all day long and slotting out this and that. It's just, I'm personally quite happy to drive around town and see patched potholes and, good landscaping and sort of get a sense myself that they're working harder this year than they did last year. But I understand if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, I think is the MBA saying, but let's not become too bureaucratic. Let's let the worker bees be worker bees. Anyway, with that, unless there's anything else on council expectations, we can move on. Thank you. Mr. Earl.
Thank you. Then moving to page 4 of 7. Successes in this area were the implemented increased branch day schedule with significant positive response from the public. Initiated a Colwood facility feasibility study to map out the future of the Public Works Yard and the City Hall site. Some challenges, continued efforts of COVID-19 on service, the continued effects of COVID-19 on service delivery, obtaining supplies and the PPE given unpredictable supply chain while maintaining increased services for cleaning and responding to calls at the cost to maintenance work. Currently, staff prioritize requests for service, creating a delicate balance between the maintenance needs and customer service. Does committee have anything you'd like to add to our success or challenge list in the area of public works?
Councillor Baxter.
I'm sure this document was written a while ago, and that's why you're not claiming any success for the last few days of heavy rain, or the last 3 events of heavy rain. So I think you should include that in there. It's only a gold star, but still.
You don't think you might be jinxing them by bringing it up before this 3rd river is passed? Mayor Martin.
Thank you. I'd just like to add 2 successes if I could, or I would like to at least suggest them. One is our corporate, I don't know what it's called actually. It's like a neighborhood watch, but it's the corporate watch program that we have implemented with Public Works. I've had some residents comment. City Watch, thank you. And then also I have received multiple emails throughout the year on people just sending me a note saying thank you to Public Works. And so I think we have from a success standpoint, I think our Public Works staff understands that they are the face of the city and have done a very good job of that. And from a PR standpoint and from a public relations standpoint. So we'd just like to acknowledge that at least within that under successes.
Okay, so Dean told me not to tell any stories tonight. I was down at the beach one day and I'm walking along and I see the Public Works truck there. The guys collecting, emptying the garbage cans. And there was somebody there, gosh, I can't remember the story now. They were off to build a structure. That's it. They wanted to take some wood and they were going to build a structure on the beach. And the guy who was down there just to empty the garbage cans, they sort of mentioned something, we're going to leave this here while we build a structure. And he goes, no, we don't like building structures on the beach. They're not safe. Kids might play in them. Like handled it incredibly well. And the guys go, oh yeah, we hadn't thought of that. And this incident went away, but I just was thinking to get that kind of quality interaction from top to bottom of the Public Works crew was impressive. So sorry about that, Dean, but I had to throw it out there. Back to you, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. 21 priorities in this area. Continue policy creation in the Public Works area, including sidewalks, snow and ice, storm and sanitary sewer maintenance. And these items, unfortunately, have been deferred to 2022. Initiate the Colwood facility feasibility study to map out the future of our complex. That's complete. Implement increased branch off, complete. Increase diversity of training for individuals and organizational success. Implement goals identified in my plan programs for employees, and those also deferred to 2022. In 2022, the priorities are continue policy creation, bring forward a report to council regarding infrastructure improvements and options for our municipal complex, and increase the diversity of training for individual and organizational success. Facilitate BCMSA, I believe that's Municipal Safety Association. supervisor safety certificate training for Public Works Leadership Group. Those are the priorities we've set up for 2022. Does council have any additions you would like to make?
Councillor Baxter.
Under both 2021 and 2022, we mentioned mapping out the future of a facility. Are they both referring to this property?
That's correct. It began with a discussion of council has, in your financial plan, funded a new public works building. In order to do that, we needed to think forward 10 years and then another 20 to determine what our public works facility will need to be 30 years from now in order to establish whether or not this site is suitable. And to do that, we also needed to do that same level of thinking for City Hall to determine whether or not this site can accommodate both of those functions. And so we've been working with an architect and team to work through that analysis about how big we are today, what the deficiencies are, how we would recreate ourselves if it was a blank piece of paper, how we're going to grow over the next decade, and then the 20 years beyond that. We'll then test that against municipalities who are currently a population of where Colwood might be at that time, and then come to council with, if you're going to build a public works building, here's what it might need to look like today, and here's what it might look like tomorrow.
Okay, two points on that. One is that I'm not sure if current staff are aware that there was a concept plan drawn up some years ago. It obviously wouldn't be sized for what you're talking about because a lot of time has gone by, but there might be some useful things in there about the siding of the entryway, for instance. And the other thing is, personally, I believe there's a lot of really good political reasons for not keeping City Hall here. Is that going to be part of discussions with council as a part of this planning exercise?
Potentially, but only by default. If the exercise discovers that the functions of public works might consume this entire site, including the City Hall site, then that would trigger a discussion. Does it make more sense to move public works elsewhere to accommodate that need, or City Hall to accommodate that need? And so first and foremost, we're trying to determine whether or not both functions can fit on the one site. And we're quite thankful that we have a substantial site.
Okay, and there are other things we could do with the leftover site other than use it for City Hall. I think so. I think Mr. Borhill looked at the issue of moving City Hall off and developing housing on the remaining property to offset some of that cost. But anyway, I'll leave all that with you. Under 2022 priorities, we mentioned sidewalks and we mentioned snow and ice. And one of my priorities is always to make sure snow and ice clearing includes sidewalks. I know we bought some equipment to help with that. So is that included in the priorities?
So this particular priority is with respect to policy creation, including sidewalks and snow and ice. And so the snow and ice policy would indeed include vehicle, pedestrian, cycling.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the only other thing that I don't know if it belongs here or under emergency response, just for our climate adaptation right now. And I can tell you a recent story about, and it's funny, the email went around about going out there and cleaning out the ditches, you know, the holes, the pipes, and we had to do that because the water rose up on Latoria there. And a couple of my neighbors, myself, we went actually in there and we cleaned it out and flushed it out just to be drained really quickly. But it's that identifying those areas that are prone to flooding with these what do we call them, climate,
Atmospheric rivers.
atmospheric rivers. Used to call it flooding before. And so I don't know if there's if there's that should be part of our priorities, just to identify a map to sort of say, here's the areas that are prone and they're the ones that we should be watching in the future. So it's just a point I want to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kobayashi. Later this evening, we'll be into the storm sewer section of the document. And within that section of the document, we have identified areas that are known specific watch sites, and the team can certainly provide more information about how we manage that during events.
Seeing none, back to you, Mr. Earl.
I will turn it over to Ms. Hepting to talk about the money.
Thank you. So I'm on page 6 of 7 of the Public Works Service Profile. Starting with the funding in this area, we do have both council resolution and city reserve policy that directs how we utilize rental revenue that's generated in city facilities. This budget here primarily relates to the St. John's and Emery Church facility site, as well as a facility located down at 170 Goldfinch Road. Colwood cleanup event, as you recall, council resolved to not hold an event in 2021. The draft 2022 budget proposes reintroducing this event. And so you'll see proposed fees as well as the necessary operating budget to support that. Moving into the core operating expenses for this area, note 4 highlights that the financial implications of the Public Works reorg has been incorporated primarily into this operating budget. This figure will be refined as we head into budget deliberations, and we do anticipate this figure will decrease slightly, but we will have improved information come January for that one. Moving along, I wanted to highlight the branch drop-off with note 5, and it has been mentioned earlier tonight. We did accelerate the number of events that we held in 2021, primarily in response to COVID. This budget includes core funding for 24 events. And below, we show the incremental cost should we wish to increase that to 45 events moving into 2022. City events and programs, that budget is split primarily between the various events that are held throughout the summer months, as well as Christmas light activity. Emergency response, the bulk, well, all of the activity that has been incurred, we're showing separately in response to COVID-19 response efforts. Note 3 to the financials provides quite a comprehensive breakdown of how our budget is changing between what we set aside in 2021 and what we're proposing for 2022. So in 2021, enhanced cleaning costs related not only to city facilities, but also to washroom facilities throughout our parks, including portable washrooms. Moving into 2022, we have reallocated that budget over into the Parks, Trails, and Recreation service area. As well, this past year, we increased funding directly related to leased vehicles to ensure that we had sufficient fleet to support physical distancing efforts. Moving into next year, you will be presented with a capital budget request to support the purchase of an additional vehicle, which is not necessarily needed to support increased physical distancing, but that of a growing public works team. Lastly, we are proposing to maintain increased facility cleaning costs for the year 2022 only, and we will reevaluate at that time. Beyond that, if there's any questions on this service area.
Mayor Martin.
Thank you. Specifically, I just wanted to talk about the COVID-19 monies in the significant drop from 272,000 to 32,000 dollars of spending. And normally I would be supportive of it. Had maybe 2 weeks ago, I would have been like, that's great that we're sort of coming out of COVID and not needing to consider budgeting for that. Now with Omicron and the new variants that are coming on, I'm just wondering if it's prudent for us to be budgeting such a low number with COVID versus should we not be budgeting a higher number and not have to spend it versus the other way around. So I guess I'm just looking for advice. Would you be considering probably coming back to council if we saw another uptake in COVID numbers around that? And specifically, I guess what I'm thinking about is the trucks and the rentals. So I just look to you or Mr. Earl.
Absolutely. Thank you through the chair. Great question. This is certainly one of those budgets that will be monitored and will likely be refined in the coming weeks as we head into budget deliberations. So you've commented on, so specifically, right now we do not have funding in place to continue with leased fleet. Should the capital request be supported, we anticipate that will be sufficient for us for operations next year. That being said, things could change and we could see the need for that funding. In addition to this budget, we do have an additional $90,000 that's in the parks service area to support increased cleaning of those facilities. So combined, we are looking at approximately $120,000, and we've set aside a nominal budget, for miscellaneous supplies as they arise. But you're absolutely right, that could change. We do, when we bring forward our financial plan, it does include a contingency factor should a need arise for a spend that is unanticipated. We will return to council for a resolution for that specific purpose.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm just, I kind of didn't catch what you were saying about the branch drop off. And I know that the budget for 2022 is less than it was for 21. Does that mean that there will be fewer events? You sort of spoke quickly when you were saying how many.
Thank you through the chair. So with the branch drop off, historically, we've maintained a core budget to support 24 events. In 2021, we increased the number of events that we supported to 45 events. And so we were offering weekly branch drop-off service for I believe it was 6-month period in the middle of the year. Should council wish to continue with the 45 events, we would need to increase the budget for branch drop-off, which is the core budget of approximately $106,000 plus the $51,000. The actualized costs related to branch drop-off in 2021 came in below budget, primarily related to the bin loading, and it didn't actualize as we had initially anticipated under budget. But to directly answer your question, right now the core budget proposes funding for 24 events, not for the 45.
So I'd just like to propose that we consider a larger budget. It's one of the things I hear the most about from residents, that they really appreciate that service. And it's ever so much easier for our public if the events are more frequent. There's less lineups, there's less issues to manage, and people can kind of, plan around, bad weather events and things that happen. If council is supportive of that idea, I'm happy to put that in motion.
So I think we have the enhanced drop-off within this budget page, which probably covers it, but do you need a motion? Would you like a motion? Then we'll take that as a motion from Councillor Day. And I'll look for a comment on the motion and trash all the people that are in the lineup. Comments on the motion to increase branch drop-off. Councillor Kobayashi. Oh, hang on. I think I have to.
Off. Do you want me to?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So my only question is that it's the, if we increase it by, you know, to whatever number that they want to increase it by with the $51,000, you know, what's the cost per drop off? Like, are we getting that many more people if we were to increase it to 45 versus the 24? Like that's what this one stat I don't understand right now. What is the cost? Like, are we still servicing the same number of people, but doing it that many more times? So therefore, hence the costs are that much more. So that's my question before I could ever vote on something like this.
So on page 3 of 7, we've provided year-to-date statistics on the number of vehicles received during branch drop-off. So it's certainly appropriate to say that increasing the number of events provides greater convenience for the community. And I would not suggest that there's a direct proportionate increase in the number of residents that are serviced as a result of increasing the events. So I would expect if we do an analysis, the increase is possibly more costly, but
Yeah.
consider
basically
qualitative
is,
factors.
because you're doubling the number of drop offs and you're getting about 10% more in actual number of cars showing up. So it is of greater cost. So just looking at the numbers here.
Yes, I would certainly suggest it's more of a convenience for the community.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Martin.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear, the motion that's before us is to increase spending by $50,000 to move it from 24 events to 45 events. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So looking at note 3 in appendix 1, that was approved for 2021, but that did not become part of core. Is that correct? So we
Correct.
would need to do it again.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Council Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, as a frequent user of that branch drop off, I appreciate Councillor Day's motion, and I will echo it. It is one of convenience, of course, but it's also one of those tangible services that people think they're getting for nothing, or there's some value in it for them, because they can just stop, drop, and roll on out. And there's a lot of value in that. We may not see an increase in vehicles per se, but there's some real value. There's some community value, which I think is worth more. And so I appreciate increasing that. And I think just the anecdotal evidence that we've experienced, certainly the feedback that I've gotten when I'm down here on Saturdays, is everybody's pretty damn happy about it. And I think going back to twice a month, I think that's where we would receive some significant feedback, negative feedback, frankly. So it's a small investment to make a lot of people happy.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Can anybody comment, because I've got a memory that we increased the number of branch drop-off events in response to long queues. And I don't know if that's an accurate memory, but staff would know better who work on this. Did the difference in queue length between 2020 and 2021, was that fairly dramatic?
Well, through the chair, Rob Boyle, Manager of Public Works, and yes, I am a user of the branch drop-off, being a call resident. Yes, the queue line, and remember we increased the number of branch drop-off days to provide for physical distancing and not increasing the queue lines, because it's taking longer for people to drop off because you can't dump 20 cars, you're dumping only 10. And then basically, yeah, it comes down to there are no queue lines that outstretch up to Wishart Road. I think some people might remember the days when it went right down past the fire hall, and then we had traffic control out. We had plans for no left turns. And I believe, and I get a lot of support from everybody else, we don't have those issues anymore. People are coming in, out, there's no queue lines that are extending back other than the first blush when people are coming in with their coffee and they're still stacked up in the driveway. But yes, the queue lines are dramatically reduced and a lot of people are quite happy with that result.
So I think that the increased number of drop-offs might not service more people, but it services them a lot better. And I think that might be what Councillor Logan said as well.
Seeing nobody else waiting to speak, seeing Councillor Day wishing to speak.
Sorry, I just had more question for the manager of public works. I just wondered if you were noticing less, with more branch drop-offs, are you seeing less debris being dumped in the parks? Like that was a very big concern in Cold Creek Park, for example, lots of grass clippings in the creek edge and things like that.
It was nice of you to specifically ask for the manager of public works for that question through the chair, but I think I'll defer that to the parks foreman to answer that question directly.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we have seen a decrease in that. And I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of that in our parks and we still see that. But where we do notice it, we did get a lot of dumping along Ocean Boulevard up by Fort Rudd Hill and that sort of thing. And that has decreased.
Thank you.
Once again, seeing nobody wishing to speak on the motion, all those in disagreement, please. Sorry, to increase the branch drop off from, I think, 24 to 45, if I have the numbers approximately right. Okay, once again, all those in opposition? Seeing none, that motion passes. Yep. Any other comment on the Appendix 1 budget? Going once, going twice. Oh, Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question here. So this question is an ugly question that has to be discussed at some time here. But I assume the park and ride electric charging stations maintenance is just for that maintenance. It's not the electricity itself. It's just the maintenance of those charge stations. Is that correct?
Sorry, through the chair, do you mind repeating the question?
So just the budget line, the $7,300 is just for maintenance of for the electric charging stations. It's not the electricity itself. It's just the maintenance of the charging stations.
It is maintenance and it is electricity for city charging stations,
So it is electricity.
those
in that
located at
too.
the city facility and in the public works yard.
So philosophically, I'm just trying to get an understanding because I wasn't around when this decision was made. It was previous council. So I guess this was an incentive to get people into electric cars that we decided to take on these costs every year. It's not a user pay system. Is that correct?
Well, and in part, we have chargers that are used within the public works yard, not available to the public. They are used for our fleet.
Okay, but this is all the ones out down at the park and ride, the ones out front in front City Hall, the ones I can think of.
This is both the ones located here at City Hall and in the Public Works Yard. Moving into 2022, West Shore Parks and Rec is taking on responsibility for the chargers located at the West Shore Parks and Rec facility.
Okay, thank you. So philosophically, is that correct in assuming that was the municipality's part in trying to get people into electric cars? Is that why we've assumed this cost and not made it a user pay system? Is that correct? You know?
If you want to duck that, Michael probably has.
If there is a member of council wishing to speak, but from your operating budget, yes, taxation is funding those costs.
Michael, do you want to address that point?
Yeah, the chargers aren't actually intended for people in Colwood who drive electric cars because they're not far from home. It's anticipated that they will fill up at home. The chargers were intended for visitors. And it's, I've been driving an electric car for 10 years, and I know the number of businesses that have got business out of me because they were located near a charging station, including a very nice distillery up in Comox Valley. So that was the intent, and that's why there are, half the chargers are in the downtown.
And my understanding is that situation is evolving to pay for use chargers. Probably not very quickly, but I thought my understanding was that was evolving, but probably not the time for discussion here when we're into public work. So any other discussion on the budget? And I think I'm looking for a motion to maintain presumably the service level. Is that correct, Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. We have two different service levels for council to provide direction on tonight. The first is Public Works, and you're absolutely correct. We're recommending a motion to maintain. Originally, when this document was published on the branch drop-off, we had recommended also a motion to maintain. Your earlier motion suggests you might want to switch that to increase.
Okay, one at a time. Public Works, can I get a motion? Councilor Kobayashi moves maintain the level of service in Public Works. Any discussion? Councilor Day.
No, it's all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was going to make the motion because
Okay.
I
Well, I like to keep you on your toes by changing it every time. Any in opposition to the motion? Maintain Public Works. Seeing none, that's carried. Next, I'd like a motion to increase the service level for branch drop-off. Councilor Day has made that motion. Discussion? Opposition? There you have your marching orders.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Moving to roads. That roadways, cycling lanes, and sidewalks be maintained, including snow removal, to ensure safety, accessibility, and functionality for all residents. That road maintenance encourages use by alternate modes of transportation. Currently, the portion of the roadway utilized by vehicles receives an equal level of service to that which is used by bicycles. The pothole issues receive a prompt and effective response. That the prudent repair and management of roads foster a sense of pride for residents and maximize the useful life of the roadway infrastructure. That snow and ice work be preventative and proactive. That paving and asphalt maintenance move from reactive to proactive, and that cycling routes be swept frequently to encourage the use of alternate modes of transportation. Does committee have any recommended changes for council's expectations on roads?
Committee, do we have anything on Councilor Day? Oh, you're not here. There you are. Okay.
I don't have anything to add or subtract, but what I really wanted to do is just comment on the fact that the way these have been written up this year, I really feel like the things that we said last year have been heard and reflected back to council. So I just thought that kudos should be given for many years that we blah, blah, blah up here and give you guys conflicting ideas of what we mean. And I just read it and I went, oh my God, they got it. So thank you.
So the attaboys and attagirls spread further within our staff. Good to see. Okay, that's good. I don't carry on, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Talking a little bit about successes in this area. Completed significant paving program of potholes and utility service with our Colwood Roads team. Expansion of in-house line marking in 2021. Repaired sidewalk infrastructure in Upper Royal Bay for pedestrian safety, as well as other panels that were heaved during the heat wave of 2021. Facilitated multi-year pavement remediation program of arterial roads as identified in our pavement assessment. Roads repaired include Souk, Whale, Veterans Memorial Parkway, Wishart, Kelly, Acacia, Carger, Terrace, Carter Terrace, and Milburn Drive. Successful snow response in February 2021. Traffic calming installations, including Milburn Drive improvements. Identified key leadership and process improvements through the Public Works reorganization process, including the introduction of supervisor and lead hand positions with specific asset management responsibilities related to road infrastructure, and implemented upgrading sweeping service to bike lane infrastructure. Challenges and opportunities, keeping pace with maintenance demands of current assets, playing catch up, currently not proactive, and responding to resident concerns is a priority for staff. Performing the scope of work with a lean interdisciplinary team. Tracking the use of cycling lanes. Acquiring line marking paint and supplies in a market with unpredictable supply chain delays, and planning and coordinating around citizen requests. Would committee like to add any successes or challenges to this list, these lists?
Committee, do we have any additional successes or challenges that we like on the list? Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Under challenges, I would suggest that the denigration of Ocean Boulevard on a yearly basis continues to be a challenge for the city. And I don't think that I'm not sure what the opportunity is there to so that it doesn't have potholes every year. And then I'm not sure how we would phrase this, because it's not a city issue around roads. I know it's a development issue around roads, but there are some key intersections, Colwood Corners and Souk and DMP, where the construction in the road has been major complaints from the public. And I'm not sure that will continue to be a challenge for us.
Thank you.
Mark, it says my battery's running low here. Thank you. Councillor Baxter. Did I kick it out? It's all my fault. Okay. Apologies. Thank you.
My challenge is probably predictable, but it's a question about whether this is a challenge to our roads folks, which is the worsening weather, including more storm damage on Ocean Boulevard and increased rain events and increased temperature events, all of which can affect the roads adversely.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Certainly from last night's experience and this night's experience thus far, we'll be adding climate change impacts to many of these areas that aren't currently reflected in the document.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I hate to add another challenge, but I have noticed, well, there's a specific site, but I know that we've run into this problem before, and it's about preventing environmental issues from developing. So as we have infill development taking place, an already built system is being impacted by a property that's now developing kind of in the midst of a neighborhood. And I guess it's run into some artesian wells in the property, which now flow out onto our roadway. So the road's been significantly wet, even on days when it isn't raining, for about a month, maybe 6 weeks now. And it's running into our storm drains with the associated gravel and whatnot from a construction site also going into those storm drains. So I just have noticed it and thought, well, that's got to be a challenge to try to figure out what to do about all those sediments and everything else. So those types of issues, managing the impacts to our road and storm drain infrastructure from construction.
Thank you. We've captured that.
Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Earl, back to you.
Moving to 21 priorities, implement improved crack seal and cat eye program with hot tar sealant trailer. The equipment has been purchased, the crew has been trained, the safety procedures have been established, and this work will begin early in 2022. Continue the asphalt remediation program, that's complete. Expand line marking program, that's complete. Formalize operational sidewalk policy, create snow and ice storm management policy, create cycle lane maintenance policy, and provide a report to council with options for curb painting and sandblasting have all been deferred to 2022. And then you can see those all repeated in the 2022 priority list with no additional ones. Does council have
So,
any priorities you'd like to
By
add?
the end of 2022, there'll be no more things to do. Be just steady as she goes. Council. So as part of the snow and ice policy, I think we talked a little bit last year about which sidewalks get plowed and when and how, and we have a few more sidewalks, we're happy to say, this year. Are we on top of that? Do we need more equipment? Do we have the procedures in place to stay on top of clearing sidewalks should we get snow?
So when council considers the snow and ice policy, if council were to direct a substantive amount of additional sidewalk that became the responsibility of the municipality, that would likely trigger a discussion, an equipment and manpower discussion. At this juncture, we are not suggesting equipment nor neither new equipment nor neither new manpower is required.
Fair enough. Okay. I don't think I see anything else. So we want to talk about the budget, or?
As was made mention during yesterday's meeting, we are experiencing some cost escalation in specific areas, and roads in particular. You are seeing the impact of that cost escalation in the proposed draft budget for 2022. The only other comment I wanted to highlight, we did have some one-time sidewalk maintenance works that were done in 2021, and we increased the budget accordingly, and we've reverted that budget back to the core needed for core sidewalk maintenance works. Beyond that, we are proposing nominal increase of $8,200 to continue with the increased bike lane maintenance, more frequent sweeping of bike lanes. Beyond that, please answer any questions you may have.
Council? Councilor Baxter.
We've been replacing streetlights with LEDs for some time now. Are we aware of any slowing in the increase in the maintenance budget, or are we expecting any future decrease in the maintenance budget?
Thank you for that question through the chair. We are right now reviewing, and we did as well for the 2021 budget preparation, reviewing the hydro budgets and adjusting where we are starting to see some of those savings materialize.
But in our own streetlights, I know we keep building new roads with new streetlights, which is presumably comes with some maintenance cost, but the LED heads have to be replaced so infrequently compared to the old style that I just wondered if you were seeing that our budget for our lights as opposed to hydro was actually decreasing or has decreased.
Perhaps I'll turn it over to the engineering team to comment.
Thank you very much. To directly answer your question, no, we haven't been able to track that yet because our numbers are little, but thank you for the suggestion. We've actually just been communicating with BC Hydro about some of their lights, and they're returning back into Colwood within the next 6 weeks after working their way around. And so combining them with our new infrastructure, we can base it on an old charge for typical streetlight versus how many lights we installed on an annual basis, and then bring that parallel forward of an interesting, it may not be exactly one-to-one, but it's a good diagrammatic representation. Happy to bring that forward inside early part of next year if you'd like.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Now I've lost my spot, but it was about the lights and whether or not we are increasing the number of LED lights that we're installing. So our theory years ago in putting together a budget for LED streetlight replacement was that as we replace the old streetlights with the new LED HUDs, that our maintenance costs would be going down, and therefore we would take those savings and put them into changing more of the old style ones into the new LED ones. So I just think that would be a really excellent metric to be able to report in our annual report. So I just thought I would flag that as something that would be a good news story.
Thank you, Councillor Day. I don't see any further discussion, so I think I'm looking for a motion to maintain the proposed service level on roads. I got that right, Mr. Earl? Good, okay. Moved by Councillor Logan. Any discussion? Any dissension? That's been passed.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Moving on to Parks, Trails and Recreation. A high standard of landscaping and safety will be upheld at parks, trails and playgrounds. The beautification of green spaces through plantings be a priority for staff. Continuous improvements for accessibility be implemented to increase all residents' enjoyment of parks, including connectivity between trails and other infrastructure and attractions. That public stewardship partnerships and engagement be encouraged throughout the city. That removal of invasive species be prioritized in natural areas, that urban forests are seen as an asset and managed accordingly, that native plant species are used where possible, and that staff identify the percentage of parks and trails that are accessible. Does committee have any recommended changes for council expectations?
Council? Committee? Anybody? Looks like you've nailed it. Oh, that looks like you'd almost nailed it. Sorry, Councillor Day. Go ahead.
That's all right. It is very close to perfect. I just, on the last bullet, that staff identify the percentage of parks and trails that are accessible. That's great, but identify and sign those parks that are accessible, because we want to measure for sure so that we can show our improvement year over year. But I think even more than that, we want to help our public know where they might be able to try out next. You know, if you have a disability.
If committee's okay, administration will treat that as a housekeeping amendment.
Thank you. Yep.
Moving on to successes in this area. Colwood playgrounds are safe and enjoyable spaces for children of all ages. Successfully oversaw transition of Meadow Park North, ensured a high standard of maintenance at this important amenity, managed the health and safety of thousands of trees in natural Colwood parks. Utilized creative solutions such as increased mulch installation to help retain water and reduce maintenance demands. Worked with stewardship groups to facilitate invasive species management through community involvement. Moving to challenges and opportunities, struggled to provide beautification due to competing service demands. Though important, calls for service complicate the delivery of scheduled work. Providing COVID sanitation and cleaning programs at a cost to scheduled work. Providing drainage for the significant quantities of water that channel along trails. Maintenance work are primarily reactive, complicating scheduled work. Keeping up with the volume of weeding, mowing, and trimming during the growing season while the hot, long summer posed its own challenges. It allowed the parks team, however, to catch up with maintenance. Ensuring the functionality of significant irrigation systems, monitoring water dispersion to reduce cost and ensure plant health, During spring, summer, staff must check all systems weekly to ensure proper function. This requires 2 employees because of the sizable geographic areas covered by our irrigation installations and integration of new individual park plans into operations. Does committee have any additional challenges, opportunities, or successes?
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I have a suggestion for one of the challenges that you've identified, which is the moisture monitoring for plants. So to do with the irrigation systems, when I was at UBCM a couple of years ago, there was a program there that uses measurement devices sort of at the base of each street tree or area of maintenance, and it sends its data remotely to the city. And so when the tree is too dry and perhaps impacting its health, it is actually going to put up a red flag on your map saying, I need attention, and allow you to go and add that to your list of things that you need to check on, so that maybe there is some technology out there that could assist Colwood in not going where they don't need to go and getting to where they do need to go.
Thank you.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question for you, Mr. Earl. During the last tax, when we were discussing the last financial plan, a good portion of the tax lift was for beautification. And so when I see the first challenge, it was a little bit of alarming to me. It set off some bells and whistles in my own head. So my question is that tax lift that we actually tax the people for that specific purpose, for the beautification. So did we or did we not spend those dollars towards that? Is my question.
We did spend additional resources. We didn't fully execute that delivery. And as we get to year end and council will see the financial statements, you'll get to see that complete story. The team had a plan to execute on council's vision, and we provided, and you provided the resources for us to do so. Other maintenance items interrupted that plan. And so the best laid plans were not executed, and those monies, some of those monies will remain underspent.
Thank you. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one additional challenge I would probably add is with increased usage and population comes an increase in maintenance requirements and demands and impact on our parks infrastructure as a result.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Sorry for the second time. I forgot about my second note. I made these notes earlier. I was just going to suggest that it may be worthwhile considering the benefits of moving to some perennials rather than just annuals, because that would give you, probably a 5 to 10 year lifespan for some of the plantings. I mean, they will still need maintenance, but it won't be the wholesale rip them all out and start all over again. And it might be that there's some particularly good points in time to do that. So maybe after you've already been doing annuals for 3 or 5 years, and most of the weeds have exhausted their long-term seeds that are in the ground, that might be the time to look at moving to some perennials or a mixture of both in order to achieve the colors and things that work. But there's a lot of good boulevard perennials that could be employed.
Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity.
I think that's it for successes and challenges.
Reflecting on the 21 priorities, create an urban forest management plan relating to boulevard trees. That's in progress. Increase service to parks and trails complete. Address invasive species in parks, ongoing, create an action program from the recent Parks and Rec Master Plan that's ongoing, and council will see an update on that this coming Monday. Implementation of data tracking systems to be achieved. And that's complete. 22 priorities. The Urban Forest Management Plan, the Invasive Species Management Plan, and implement actions from the Parks and Rec Master Plan. Does council have additional priorities or would like to see a priority changed for 2022?
Council? If I could perhaps throw out one thing that popped into my head when I was doing this, and that's perhaps a 2022 priority would be to take the knowledge that the public works crew is learning from trails. I see you providing drainage for significant quantities of water channel along the trails, and just work with the engineering and development services department to really try to establish the right trail design as we go forward with, we're looking at trails along the waterfront and trails in a lot of our developments. And I guess it's perhaps in these bigger projects is not considered the most critical thing. It doesn't get the attention it needs, maybe, or maybe it does. And then we just have to put up with that much maintenance. But the best standard we could implement at day one will save effort on the years to go along. So whatever that may be, and I know there's huge debates over the right way to build a trail, so I'll stay out of it. But passing that knowledge on within the organization would be valuable, I think, for the long term. Anybody else with any comments? Or then if you're okay with that as a housekeeping amendment, Mr. Earl.
If committee is, then I am.
They are. I'm in charge. They are. Councillor Day.
I just wanted to, when we started talking about the trails maintenance, I know that the maintenance of trails really impacts accessibility for people who have mobility devices. And it's actually is the parks and trails here in Colwood that has informed me about what the best options are, because it's been our trails, the flatter ones anyways, so some of the mountainous ones not so much, but the more level trails that have been done with the crushed stone dust on the top has been the greatest longevity, much lasted better than pavement in some areas. And that makes a huge difference. If you're trying to push a wheelchair on gravel, it's just totally different on a hard surface as opposed to one that your wheels sink down into. And it will literally make it impossible for some people to go there when there's gravel instead of the fine stone dust that has made surfaces that I've seen last for 15 years.
Thank you.
I think then I'm looking for a motion to maintain the proposed service level for parks, trails, and recreation. Councillor Day. Any? No, this is the section 1, parks, trails, and recreation.
Would committee be interested in hearing from Ms.
Oh.
Hepting on the financial impacts? of this
Councillor
section?
Kobayashi, you are correct and I am wrong. Didn't mean to take away your moment of glory here, Jeff.
I'll be brief. The primary impact on the core operating budget for this service area is related to that of our West Shore Parks and Recreation requisition. So their draft budget is indicating a 4% increase in their requisition. We're actually anticipating that budget will be slightly higher than the 1.164. And so that overall is that swing that's above 2% in this area. As was mentioned earlier, much of the tax increase in 2021 was related to increased parks maintenance and increased trails maintenance. And those increased efforts were slightly delayed into Q3 as a result of competing priorities. That is one of the reasons that our actual spend in this area has actualized below budget. In addition, The maintenance budgets were increased, primarily the parks maintenance budget was increased in response to increased infrastructure coming on board, primarily that in the Royal Bay area. And we have not assumed full maintenance responsibility. We do anticipate that headed into 2022. Commented earlier with the use of COVID restart grant for enhanced washroom facility maintenance in the areas of parks, primarily portable washrooms. And so that budget is reflected for 2022 only and will of course be evaluated throughout the year. Moving down into previously approved increased service budgets, we are looking in 2023 at additional funding required to move that increased frequency for both parks maintenance and trails maintenance. Lastly, we've got note 6 to provide some commentary. We are proposing an increased budget to support increased irrigation system services. And that's an overview on this service area's operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, Jen. So I guess there's some doubt in my head right now because I look at the number of people and then your burn rate has to be higher and you had the issues last year as a challenge, so are you going to be able to actually spend this? I guess that's my question. The reality, it's just the reality because I assume most of these costs are labor costs, right? So do you have, there's no increase in people. So well, yes, there is, but it's just, I just find this kind of odd that it's increased as much and yet you had the challenges with competing priorities. What makes the upcoming year any different? It's just my question.
Through the chair, thank you. And it would be more appropriate to turn that over to the Public Works team to comment.
Rob Boyle, Manager Public Works, through the chair. The challenges with our people, they didn't come on board as fast as we thought. We put forward the number of people thinking that we were taking on all of Meadow Green, for instance, which is the Royal Bay Park. We have not realized taking all of the maintenance for Royal Bay Park. So when you ask, are we going to realize it next year? Yes, we are. The team has been reviewing the maintenance obligation there, and we are confident that we'll be able to deliver that service with the people that we have. And that was put forward, I believe, in 2020. So yes, we're just slowly getting the number of people. So we're behind the ball getting the people in. Don't want to get them in too fast, but it looks like we've got enough people to go forward. Okay.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen, this probably isn't a you question. This is probably more a Gord question, but maybe we can talk about the irrigation. What are we achieving for the 42K? I'd love to hear. Is this just servicing what we already have, or is it an increased capacity, or?
Yeah, so what we found is with the amount of irrigation that we are dealing with right now, and we have a full-time irrigation tech, we have needed an additional irrigation person on board for that.
So this is half a body.
It's half a body, I believe. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So and we do have someone who has gone through training, so we actually have the training in-house. It's just having the bodies there during the growing season when we really need it.
Great. Okay, right on. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions, thoughts? Okay, can I go back asking for a motion? To maintain the service level, parks, trails, and recreation. Councillor Day, any discussion on the motion? Any opposition to the motion? That motion passes.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Moving to boulevards. That a manicured appearance be maintained along Colwood Boulevards, that beautification through annual planting be implemented wherever possible. Currently, annual plantings are installed along presentation boulevards such as Island Highway, Whale Road, with the remaining plants dispersed where possible. That boulevard amenities foster a sense of pride for residents, and that staff manage the city's urban forest and guide future maintenance through the creation of an urban forestry master plan. Does committee have any recommended changes for council expectations?
Oh, there you are. Okay, Counselor Day.
Thank you. I don't want to be too nitpicky, but I just feel like we have lots of different types of boulevards. Some are manicured and lovely, and some are wild with, native plants and trees being more what you would see there. So I just wanted to add that they're not all manicured. Some of them are going to be wild and natural. And I think that's a good thing. But I guess I don't know how to capture that in our expectations, in that if it's natural, it's okay for it to be natural. And if it's more of a manicured setting, it's manicured.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Staff have attempted through page 8 of 10 of this service area to document, as you've just described, the differential standards for boulevards. And we've identified here 3 different standards: presentation boulevards, neighborhood boulevards, cul-de-sac islands. Perhaps in the document that you see next year, we will include natural boulevards as a 4th category of articulation.
Mayor Martin.
Thank you. Just a question more than putting it in there. Where does wayfinding fit in? We had a presentation by our communications director a week or 2 ago, and we saw all these wayfinding signage that would look like they would land in boulevards. So should wayfinding be in boulevards, or is it a completely different department, which I'm fine with if it doesn't land there? Or maybe they don't land in boulevards at all. I don't know. We do have some, Whale Road has some stuff.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The impetus for a wayfinding program would likely begin with our communications team. Once that capital project gets across the line and in situ, it would likely be up to our boulevards team to maintain them. And so as we move forward and develop a richer series of wayfinding signs, you will begin to see maintenance of the wayfinding system within this service area.
So it's not necessary presently. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a general comment, Mr. Earl, but I love this feedback that we're getting here from the Parks Department as far as time spent, percentage of time spent. I love that. And that, in my mind, meets sort of my expectation for the kind of metrics that that I believe Councillor Kobayashi was speaking to. And I think I'm hoping that something like that might be suitable for some of the other departments we're talking about. It might provide some of the clarity that that we're trying to achieve. That I get it's maybe a bigger picture, but it does show me where your staff are spending the greatest amount of time.
Thank you. Very good advice.
Don't have any other comments, Mr. Earl, so carry on.
Thank you. Moving to successes of boulevards. Beautified the city with summer and winter annual plantings. Managed the health and safety of thousands of trees along Colwood's boulevards. Utilized creative solutions such as increased mulch. Key challenges: keeping pace with the growth of managed assets. Staff time is stretched to serve the needs of new boulevards at Royal Bay. Ensuring the functionality of our significant irrigation systems, monitoring water, you've heard that one before. Focus on community feedback needs to be balanced with the overall service delivery plan and keeping up with the volume of weeding during the growing season. Does committee have any additional successes or challenges you'd like to add to the boulevard service area?
Committee? Councillor Day.
I think To the successes, I think we should add working with volunteer groups. There's been, I don't know if they happened in this last year, but there have been a number of community members who've come out either working along VMP at Havenwood Park or working within our various linear parks or others on removing invasive species. And I think that should be somewhere in our successes because we're working with more hands than we would have had to accomplish things. And even if we're not working right alongside each other, oftentimes Public Works comes along after the event has happened and at least, you know, takes away all the invasive plants that have been pulled, et cetera. And that is greatly appreciated. And then it really instills also that sense of being a part of what's happening in the community, both for staff and for the citizens who come out to help.
Thank you.
That's a good point, Councillor Day. That's housekeeping there, Mr. Earl. Thank you. Not seeing anybody else, so if you can carry on.
Thank you. 21 priorities. The urban forest management plan is mentioned. Creating boulevard beautification plan in coordination with communications to showcase Colwood. That's deferred to 2022. Re-examine service to complex arterial center garden beds and devise methods to provide beauty while improving safety. Complete. And then 2 items deferred. Community education and feedback with respect to boulevard plantings and determine cul-de-sac maintenance options. And then you can see the 2020, some of that repeated in the 2022 priorities, the urban forest management plan, the boulevard beautification plan, community education and feedback with regard to boulevard plantings and the cul-de-sac plan. Does committee have any additional priorities for this year?
Mayor Martin.
Thank you. Actually, it's just more of a question to you, Mr. Earl. Where would pedestrian bridges land? So for example, if the city was successful in getting a pedestrian bridge, would it be under the category of boulevards or would it be under the category of roads or where would it land?
I think that may be a function of where the specific bridge was. It could be on a trail and then it would be in our trail system. If it was generally on a roadway, potentially in that system, it's a function of which bridge and
So specifically the one that we're aspirational to get on between Whale and Goldstream. Yeah, it's a trail, I guess.
Rob Boyle, Manager of Public Works. I'll weigh in on the question since it seems to be up in the air. A bridge of that nature would fall under roads and significant structures. We have different bridges. It's an interdepartmental. It's not just Public Works. It'll come into engineering as provide maintenance. We do that with Lagoon Bridge. We do that with our main bridges in our parks currently. So we have a program for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Baxter.
I just want to thank the Manager of Public Works for pointing out that the bridge would be up in the air. But the bridge that we're speculating about, which doesn't exist yet, but might exist one day, is actually connecting 2 pieces of a CRD trail. So would it in fact become part of the CRD system?
ultimately, absolutely, it would form an integral part of the Galloping Goose Trail system, which flows through Colwood and is currently a CRD system. As council is aware, the city of Colwood has made application to the federal government to create a bridge in that location. And part of that application process required the city to affirm that the city would be responsible for maintenance of that structure and replacement at the end of its useful life. And so in order to take advantage of any granting opportunities, the city would need to commit to such responsibilities.
And since the bridge would, well, I don't know, sometimes railway right-of-ways go through roads and sometimes road right-of-ways go through railway right-of-ways. But whoever owns the right-of-way that the bridge sits on, I guess owns the bridge.
And great topic, probably not all that related to boulevards that we're
Yeah.
talking about right now.
Yeah,
We-
interesting
we
topic.
can- Yes, we can have a long
Thank you.
chat about it, but Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it brief since we're up in the air and hypothetical. But it would definitely be a feature area for Colwood. So something that really does deserve to be considered for special attention in the future.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, perhaps Ms. Hepting? Ms. Hepting there?
Thank you. It's important to highlight that under the 2021 to 25 financial plan, council did endorse an increased level of service for 2022 in this area. And that budget is before you and was incorporated into the draft preliminary property tax increase that was mentioned yesterday. In addition, you just heard earlier, we are underway on the creation and implementation of an urban forest management plan. That is a priority, and that will guide some of the spend in this area. Beyond that, please answer any questions you may have.
Committee, any questions? No, then I think I'm ready for a motion. Councillor Kobayashi has moved to maintain proposed service level for boulevards. Any discussion? Any opposition? That passed.
Chair Parkinson, moving on to storm sewers, that storm sewers be maintained to ensure safety and functionality for residents and maximize the useful life of the infrastructure. That critical open drainage infrastructure be kept clear, inspected once a year with brush cutting only for function, limited aesthetic consideration. Critical hotspots are monitored frequently during heavy rains. That staff provide prompt assistance to residents experiencing stormwater issues, and that staff provide clarity to the public regarding the maintenance practices and requirements relating to open systems. Does committee have any recommendations for changes to expectations of storm sewer service area?
Look into committee to see if there's any changes to the council expectations as listed. Seems like everybody's happy.
Moving to successes. Completed cleaning of all catch basins, a task that pays dividends during extreme rainfall. Located critical areas of improvement and provided significant repairs, Grousewood Place, Kualta, Haida, and Ocean View Park. Identified key leadership and process improvements through the Public Works reorganization process. Challenges, the C1 Allendale drainage pond overflow and related pumping. Provided reactive service to infrastructure managing the components of an aging storm system. And drainage pond maintenance program requires expansion in order to ensure accessibility for monitoring of pond infrastructure. Does committee have any additional successes or challenges you'd like to add to these lists?
Mayor Martin, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thank you. Just under successes, and it could be also, it could be other departments as well. But I just thought of it, is the public service videos that we produced with our public works staff to educate the public on clearing up the drains and how to maintain parks. And so to be honest, I'm sure that we could put that as a success in several of those. And that's it. Thank you.
Good point. Councillor Baxter.
Does the Lookout Brook Dam come under storm sewers or under parks?
I'm not sure it would be either. Lookout Brook Dam, what service area provides that?
There's a number in here
function?
somewhere for dam maintenance.
The actual park surface and area, so where we've talked about the beach, where we've talked about washing facilities, is considered a park. The dam itself is considered a structure as opposed to a storm drainage structure. So we consider it an engineering, and the park surface layer of the dam and those improvements that we've spoken of would be a park feature.
Thank you.
Clarify that through the chair. The spillway would be falling under the storm sewer drain maintenance, and it is one of the hotspots that we look for.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just was thinking about, and I guess I don't quite know where it fits, but it is that part, and maybe the videos would cover it, but it's both a success because obviously we've had a lot of initiatives that have taken place to identify those high-risk areas, and that we have engaged our public to ensure that they go out and check the hot spots that they know of. But also a challenge because I guess everybody has their own idea of what the best way to handle a particular challenge might be. And there's probably many ways that work, but it's about getting both the residents and the city all on the same page. So I guess that's a challenge, is meeting the public expectations, and a success would be actually getting the word out to people.
Thank you, Councillor Day. If I could draw committee's attention to Appendix 2, page. Well, I'm not sure what version you're looking at, but mine would be page 46 of 47, but it's Appendix 2 and it's flood watch. And it's been mentioned a couple of times this evening, but we've got different routes with locations, and these are all our hotspots. And so the team has done a substantive amount of work to understand where they need to pay attention during substantive events.
And how would that work?
I'll have the team talk about it.
Thank you.
Good evening, and through the chair, I'm Bob Angelis, the roads foreman for utilities, roads and utilities. Our drainage system has been prioritized for seasonal. We do regular cleanings for CBs and regular drains through the year, but these ones are the main hotspots where the inflow and outflow of water is the most important, that can cause flooding to structures, housing and things like that. So this is a priority list that we make each year and continue to add to it and subtract from it as time goes on.
So just if you hear a storm coming, you'd send one guy on each of these routes to check them all out? Is that kind of how you do
We
it?
follow the weather quite closely. It's not about every storm. It's some of these drains are small, some of them are large for consistent flow, and some are for storm watch. So yes, as rains come and seasonal weather changes, we monitor these flows on a regular basis.
Okay, and while we've got you here, sounds like everything went well in the last few storms.
If I could add, yes, I must say over the past 3 years, the improvements that we've made in our drainage showed quite well through this past rainy season that we've been getting. And we've come out, I think, ahead of the game with any damage.
Well, great work.
Really happy with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on that. Is there significance on the color coding, or you just call them the routes? Is there
Bob, are they,
significance?
does the colors matter?
Yes, they're
So-
important in the sense of.
Yeah, please.
Colors are not extremely important for any prioritization. They are a quadrant of the city. And so, yeah, blue, green represent mountain areas and high runoff, and red and orange are just lower areas.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
21 priorities, create a stormwater maintenance operation policy that was deferred to 2022. Initiate flush and camera program of the closed storm system, that's ongoing. Assessment of stormwater infrastructure through an inlet and outlet inspection program, ongoing. Proactive maintenance of hotspots, complete. Initiate flush and camera program, ongoing. Sorry, that's repeated. And then you can see those three again repeated below in 2022 with expand drainage pond maintenance program to ensure accessibility for monitoring of pond infrastructure. Does committee have any additional or changed 2022 priorities?
Committee? I'm not seeing any. So, Ken?
During the 2021 service review, council endorsed an increased level of service for closed storm sewer systems. And the core operating budget was adjusted accordingly. The implementation of this enhanced work has begun, but did not actualize to the extent of the budget this year, which is one of the drivers of the projected spend coming in below budget. We do anticipate that that projected spend will likely come in higher as we refine numbers towards the end of the year. With respect to the previously approved increased service level, that's simply just reflecting the full year cost implications of the closed storm sewer system maintenance. Beyond that, I don't have anything explicit to highlight. Pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Committee? Okay, not seeing any. I would entertain a motion to maintain the proposed service level with storm sewers. Councillor Baxter. Any discussion? Any in opposition? Seeing none, declare that passed.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. That brings us to the end of tonight's agenda.
Councillor Logan, anything you want to say? Oh, 2 minutes. Councillor Kobayashi moves adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.